Next, we will have Dr. John Bassett, who has served as president of the Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts since 2001. Before assuming that position at Clark University, Dr. Bassett was the Dean of College of Arts and Sciences at Case Western Reserve University and an English professor in the Department of Chair at North Carolina State University.
Thank you, Chairman Miller and Ranking Member McKeon and the other members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity also to come and testify on these very, very important issues. And I also want to thank the committee for its work in increasing federal financial aid for students, and particularly for the recent increase in the Pell Grant. These are real questions about cost. There is no question. I'm also testifying on behalf of the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities, or NICU, which is an association of over 1,000 private universities and colleges in America. But I have spent the majority of my life in the public sector, with 14 years at Wayne State and 9 years at North Carolina State, so I feel sensitive to the issues in both the public and private sector. I have been asked to focus this morning some of my time on the issue of transparency. And particularly since I was the one that chaired the NICU committee that developed the UCAN proposal, the University and College Accountability Network. And the seeds of UCAN actually lie in this committee. I think when Congressman McKeon and others began to ask questions about the availability of information, we were somewhat frustrated too, because we know that high school seniors and their parents are deluged with information about colleges. And we know that we submit the iPads to the government with, as you say, reams of paper with data, but there was no way that a family could get in a concise, user-friendly format some comparable information in a concise manner about size of schools, about tuition, about financial aid, about emphasis of schools. And out of that came the initiative of NICU. We began with focus groups made up of high school students and their parents from diverse economic backgrounds, and tried to develop a compact, clear, concise, user-friendly device with comparable information, and that really is what UCAN is. Parents and students also wanted to know, what is it that makes your school distinctive? What is it that makes you special? What's different about your school as well? And so what you have posted up there on the wall, but also in your materials, is they've chosen my own university, Clark, as an example. But the result is a two-page website, concise, clear, providing general information about things from tuition to financial aid to geographical distribution to number of students who graduate each year. But then also, there are 47 data elements there, 25 hot links to things that are more specific about your college. What do your students do when they graduate? What kind of careers do they go into? What kind of community service are your students involved in? And Clark students, most of them are involved in the community, and so there's a whole page on community service. Since UCAN was rolled out in the last week of September, there are now over 700 colleges and universities that have joined the UCAN website. We've had over 70,000 hits, about 418,000 pages being used. I think it's important to remember that this is only a starting point, that students will begin to narrow down the number of colleges they're really interested in at some point, and then they ask much more focused personal questions. I'm interested in pre-med. What kind of biology program do you have? I may want to play soccer while I'm in college. Do you have a soccer team? I'm interested in being involved in theater. What kind of accounting program do you have? There's no two-page insert that can cover all of that, but this can help people know more about each specific college, what it can do, what its majors are, what programs it has. Still, we're left with some of the fundamental questions about cost. And let me turn to those briefly, because prices are up. I looked at the Clark data. Our tuition between the mid-90s and this middle part of this decade went up about 59%. Our financial aid went up about 64% per student in that same time period, which means we actually recouped less than the tuition increases provided. The main reasons for the great growth in tuition: costs, utility costs, health care costs, technology costs, insurance costs. Some of those went up well over 100% and the others close to 100% of the same time period. Higher education at its best, moreover, is very labor intensive. It's still 20 students and a professor, 30 students and a professor, 40 students and a professor. You don't have the same kind of savings that you may have in certain kinds of productivity in manufacturing, for example, from technology. Colleges are cutting costs. They're joining consortia. They're outsourcing. They're saving on energy. They're double painting their windows. They're cutting the temperature in classrooms. And you have a compendium attached with a lot of what's happening in colleges. I'll be brief in finishing up. Every year, moreover, colleges and universities also make cuts that they don't like to make because they impact quality. They replace a professor with part-timers and teaching assistants because they're having a hard time making budget. They increase class size. They cut library holdings. They cut counseling staff. In the private sector, it's a very tight market that all except the wealthiest universities are in. When we figure out what our budget of expenditures will be and then figure out what tuition increase a college can make, we will reach a tipping point where a further increase in tuition will have a negative impact on revenue. Those that can afford to pay will not come, and those that are getting financial aid will continue to get it. I still believe the best solution to these problems is a healthy partnership between colleges and universities, public and private, and the government and the state governments working together to get their arms around these issues.